Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Ooh, righty there, then there, righty. Welcome once again to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. I am, as always, your host, Duck. And we got Alan 1 and Alan 2. We got Brian, we got Gloria, we got Bob. Bill sent me a notification. He's not going to be able to make it tonight. I invited some new people to see if they can join us, but I don't see them here. So if they show up, they show up. If not, well, you know. So I do ask that you spread the word. Let your fellow photographers know about what we do here. Don't keep it to yourself. I know you want to keep it to yourself, but help me out. All right. I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but CTPPA holding its annual conference. It's still a bit of ways, but we got plenty of tickets for that, and I'm going to be doing a presentation on the first day, which is a Friday evening. So Milford Photo is doing a day at the zoo, at the Beardsley Zoo. It's going to be in conjunction with Sigma lenses. So if you want to try out a Sigma lens for yourself, that's a great opportunity. Sigma is going to have a bunch of lenses. You can try them out for free. All you got to do is, you just kind of leave your driver's license behind. You can take it out, take it for a drive, as they say. When you turn your lens back in, you just pick your driver's license back up. And we'll be doing some little tips and tricks on how to photograph animals in captivity, in order to, maximize the effect of photographing an animal and minimizing the effect that they're in captivity. So it's always a fun event when we do it at the zoo.
Are you going to be there?
I will. Absolutely.
I'm surprised. That's great.
Yeah, it's they haven't done anything at the zoo in a couple of years, obviously because of COVID. So it's nice that they're getting back out there. If you've never been to the Beardsley Zoo, shame on you. It's an awesome little zoo right here in Connecticut. Who knew we had such a wonder here? Fortunately, it's right down the street from me, so I get a chance to go there, on occasion. Not as much as I should, but hey, Anyway, speaking of CTPPA, the next photo walk is at Lavender Pond Farm in, I can't remember. I looked it up a couple of days ago, and I can't remember.
Killingworth, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, it sounds about right. I know it's
Killing something.
Killingworth, Killingly. Yeah.
Yes, one of those. Yeah,
one of those. I've never been there, so I
nice
couldn't
place.
venture.
Nice place.
I've seen photos, and from what I hear, it's a very, very popular spot for photographers to bring bride and grooms into, for senior portraits, for engagement photos, for family portraits. So we're hoping that it's going to be a nice day. It is early in the morning, at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. Of course, it's on a Wednesday. As much as I protest with them, they seem to want to hold it on a Wednesday. That's out of my control.
What date? What Wednesday?
Oh, that is June 28th. June 28th. Okay.
And the date for the other one?
The Milford Photo. Oh, I should probably be.
The meeting.
Oh, the conference is June 23rd through the 25th. Is it? Wait a minute. Is that correct? Let me just double check that. Why does that? Okay, hold on. Calendar. Oh, it is this month. Yeah, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I'll be presenting on the 23rd. Yeah. So, okay. The let me go ahead and share. There we go. All right. And last but not least, the event that I do have control over, because it is my event, is the multiplicity photo shoot. We're not able to do it during COVID, so it's been a couple of years. So it's kind of nice to get back out and do this event. In the past, it's always been very well received. So I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be doing it at Hubbard Park. I posted a photograph of Hubbard Park and indicating kind of where we're going to meet. If you have been to Hubbard Park, you know that you come in through the entrance and there's a big pond there. Literally right at the entrance, there is a little information center. There's a little gazebo. There's a little bridge that connects from this little pond with a fountain on it, and it's really, really picturesque. We're going to be meeting at that gazebo towards the main entrance. So when you come in, if you do a loop around the pond and make your way like you're going back out of the park, as you're heading towards the exit, you're going to see kind of like a little amphitheater off on the left-hand side. Right behind that amphitheater, there's a small parking area. All right. And I suggest parking there because it puts you at a very close walking distance to where we are going to be. So anyway, if you can join us, that's Saturday, July 15th at 4 p.m. And of course, you're welcome to stay a little longer if you want to get some sunset photos. Okay. Somebody suggested maybe possibly taking a ride up to Castle Craig up at the top. We may do that if people get there early and there's a large enough consensus. Maybe we can, all carpool to the top, get some photographs, and then make our way back down, for the multiplicity. That'll be up for discussion. All right. So, but anyway, if you can join us for that one, that'd be great. The other thing I've done in the past, it's not listed here, obviously, because I haven't set a date for it, is I have a photo hunt card game that I've been developing. It's a slow developing because I kind of work on it a little bit on my off time. I did have conversation with some lawyers and some intellectual property consultants, and they said that I need to change the name. Photo hunt is not going to fly because it's too descriptive and it's too generic. So I said, okay, I have to come up with a new name. I've also kind of redesigned the cards to make them a little bit larger, and I've cleaned up the description on some of them. So the new name for the game is Snap Happy, a photo scavenger hunt. No, a photo, yeah, something like that, a photo scavenger hunt. Anyway, I've been working on it. I'm going to be ordering a new set with the new logo and all that. But in the meantime, I want to get a game going with the old set, just because it's a lot of fun. And the way it works is it's 2 decks of 52 cards, and the cards are photographic prompts. And they're kind of, I mean, you can keep score if we want to. Each card is either worth 1, 2, or 3 points. Some cards have bonus points, so that if you complete, the challenge and meet the criteria, you can get extra bonus points. But we usually just play for fun. And the way it works is everybody picks a card. There is some kind of photographic challenge on the card, and you have, like 5 minutes to go out in whatever environment we're in, and try to complete the challenge on the card. And it's designed to kind of make you think on your toes, think outside the box in a way, and challenge yourself photographically, because some of these can be, technically a little bit more advanced. Some of them may just be challenging you to do something that you normally don't do, like photograph a stranger, for example. A lot of people have problems with that, and that is one of the cards. So if you draw a card that says you got to photograph a stranger, if you want that point, you got to do it. But anyways, it's a lot of fun. I've done it several times in the past, and I want to get that on the schedule now that the warm weather's here. So look for that coming up soon. Okay. Also in the works, not scheduled, is a half-day off-camera flash workshop. This will be in conjunction with Milford Photo, using Godox lights. So if you're interested in learning off-camera flash, studio flash, this will be the workshop to attend. I will be breaking it down to as always, to the core fundamentals, and you'll walk away knowing enough about the fundamentals that you can build on your own. So look forward to that coming up soon. I will let everybody know once I get a date from Jesse over at Milford Photo. Another workshop that I am working on putting together in conjunction with a photography friend of mine. This one probably won't be until like September, and that is working with models. It's going to be kind of like a 2-tiered half-day workshop where we teach models how to work with photographers, and at the same time, photographers how to work with models, in order to facilitate, in order to get the best images that you possibly can, and to, kind of teach some of the rules about working with photographers or working with models that, some people you don't want to learn the hard way. So anyway, that's also being developed. But like I said, that's not until, the fall. Okay. Anyway, that's it for stuff that's coming up. Today is Lightroom, and if you've been following, I don't know if you guys follow any of the information about Adobe products, not just Lightroom, but also Photoshop. The past several months, there has been a lot of activity, coming out of the Adobe camp, all pretty much related around the artificial intelligence aspect of the AI engine that is built into, Photoshop, Adobe Camera Raw, and Adobe Lightroom. It's getting to the point where it's coming out like this, that it's almost hard to keep track of what's what. In particular, they just released on in a beta format, kind of like an AI text to image generator that you can apply in conjunction to your photography. So you can actually use text to image prompts within your work. So, you know, if you need to change something within an image, if you're working on some type of composite, you can generate elements live in your document. If you shot the aspect ratio, well, the aspect ratio is locked on your camera, but let's say you missed and you said, oh, I wish I could have gotten more on the right hand side. Well, guess what? Now you can use Adobe AI to kind of help you fill in that space, and it will auto generate, you know, content to where there is no content. All right. If you need a tree, bam, you just type it in. It's gotten a lot of press. It's gotten a lot of publicity. A lot of the YouTubers are all over it. I typically do not cover beta versions, simply because it's like, you know, it's not here yet. It's not ready. I'm not going to bother with it. But it is down to pipelines, and it looks like it's very, very, very close to being rolled out as a standard feature. So I'm going to give you a heads up when that rolls out. If you haven't seen it already, prepare your mind to be blown, because it's amazing what they're doing. I know there's a lot of kind of mixed feelings about AI and text to image generation, especially, you know, with products like Midjourney and things like that, where they kind of trained their AI on people's photos and artwork without their knowledge. It's kind of a, you know, in my opinion, it was a shitty thing to do, because it's literally ripping off the hard work of photographers and artists over the years. You know, they put in their blood, sweat, and tears for these companies to come in and say, oh yeah, we're going to use it and we're not going to pay you. You know, I thought that was a really bad deal. How is Adobe doing it? Well, they're kind of circumventing it, and they're using Adobe stock to train their models. So they already, quote unquote, have a right to it, but on the same aspect, they did not warn the contributors that this was going to happen. So contributors did not have an option of opting out of the training ahead of time. So that aspect of it is kind of sketchy and a dirty move, but it is what it is. These are corporate giants. They can set the rules, right? So anyway, so I don't really have anything, because we have been covering so much. So I figure what I do is we'll play catch up. For those of you who may be struggling and keeping up with some of the things that we've put out in the past. I know in particular the masks has really been overhauled several times, and they've kept adding features and adding features and adding features. And the latest feature, of course, utilizes AI. So if you got questions on any of that, we can go over that. So it's up to you guys. I'll open it up for you.
I will say I don't have any specific questions about it, but I never tire of watching you show us something about layers, and if there's something there to be had, and the new ways of doing things, that would be I'm always interested in that part of
I,
your program.
I greatly appreciate it. So to touch on that, uh, obviously I try to take into account what it is that you guys want to learn. When I choose what I'm presenting, I want to keep in mind the type of photography you guys do. And I know for the most part, you do a lot of nature stuff, a lot of wildlife stuff, a lot of landscapes and things like that. I think Gloria, you're probably the only one that really does any kind of portraiture work, besides me. So I haven't really put a lot of time and effort into showcasing the new masking features for faces. So or not, I shouldn't say for faces. I should say for people. Because they really, really just went to town on that, and that was the last update that they did for the mask feature on Lightroom. So if you're
For me,
interested,
those have been great. The
uh,
masking features for people and faces have been super. When a group of group of 5 or 6 steampunk,
mhm.
at this weekend, I'm able to hit the faces, face mask, and just lighten the faces up without touching the background or
Yeah,
touching the rest of it. Then I really like that particular tool when it came out in Lightroom.
yeah. I mean, it blew me away to the kind of detail. So all right, so let's see.
And can I just throw in, even though you mentioned what I like taking pictures of, I do like taking candid and portrait shots, but I'm not that good at managing them, so I'm always interested in that as well. So,
What do you mean by managing?
well, I'm not. I like taking pictures of portraits, but I'm not that good at editing them properly.
Oh, edit. Okay,
And,
okay.
and as it turns out, my little project, my book project, as I'm scouring through old photos, I keep seeing all these portraits and faces, and I go, oh, I wish I knew how to take the shadows out of that a little better, and that kind of
Right,
stuff.
right.
And trying to
Okay.
remember all the little tricks you taught us in the past about getting rid of dots and those kind of things. They go, oh yeah, I got to go back and watch that again. So anyway, I'm interested.
Okay. All right. Let me see if I can pull up some. Let's see. Can I use some stuff from my previous? Yeah, I think I can probably use some of these. I don't have their permission, but hey, they're my photographs, and and it is for educational purposes. So let me go ahead and switch over to this. Okay. So let's use this one here. All right. These 3 young ladies were at a recent event that I photographed. I was walking into the venue, and right outside the venue, this was, I don't want to say grand opening. It's not even a grand reopening. This hotel just did a major renovation, and so it's kind of like a rolling out of the new spaces, and they did a little tour of all the different types of rooms, the different suites that they have, and they in one of the ballrooms, I guess you can call it, they set out, all these different types of foods that you can sample, and oh my God, the food alone was phenomenal. But anyway, in the hallway, as you entered this big room, they had set up this little background thing for people to take selfies, and it's kind of a little fun. Because the theme was kind of like a continental theme. So they had, Latin American foods, they had Italian foods, they had Mediterranean foods and things like that. So it was a nice little sampling. So they kind of had a vague theme of like around the world kind of thing. But anyway, so these young ladies were taking their selfies, and I come walking by with my big old camera rig, and they go, "Oh, can you take a picture of us?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." So I snapped this image. So because it is an event, I really don't do a lot of editing. So it's gotten a minimal amount of editing so far, but not really a lot. But let's break down the features that are available with the local edits. And of course, local edits are done with masks. So in this particular case, we have 3 people. And as soon as I click on the little mask symbol, that's this little circle here in my local adjustments panel, all right, that opens up my mask utility. And the one thing you'll notice is down at the bottom, it's people. And this is where the AI really truly steps in. The first circle here you can see is all people. And then it actually does a fairly decent job of identifying individual people. And of course, Lightroom has had the face recognition for quite a while, so that's not anything new. But you can see how it's using the facial recognition here to kind of display the person that's being selected. So we have person number 1, person number 2, and person number 3. And you can see that as I hover over it, it puts up that overlay indicating what the mask looks like. And if you can see that it does, like I said, it does a pretty darn awesome job right out of the box in being able to select individual subjects. All right, so depending on what it is that you want to do, you can select them all and apply the same edits to all 3 people. Or you can say, you know what, the light was a little weird, and maybe one person was in a lot of light and the other person was a little bit of a shadow, and you need to adjust both differently. You can do that by selecting them individually. So let's select them individually. All right, we'll start off with this, the taller lady here on the right-hand side. And all you got to do is click on the icon that represents the person that you want to edit. And it's going to go through a little bit of a process because the AI engine's working in the background. And what it's going to do is it's already isolated the overall form. Now what it's going to do is it's going to break it down into parts. And this is what I thought was really, really impressive with this new feature. And you can see that it's built a list. And by default, it's got the entire person checked off. And if we go down the line, we can see that it says, facial skin, body skin, eyebrows, eye sclera, which is the whites of the eyes, the iris and the pupil, lips, teeth, hair, and clothing. All right, so you have to keep in mind that the accuracy of these selections relies, of course, on the quality of the image that's being, selected. If you're working, if let's say, for example, you are a portrait photographer or a headshot photographer, and you're photographing people from literally chest up, these features are going to be much larger in the frame than if you're doing something like this, which is a group shot. All right. So also, if somebody's wearing sunglasses, obviously it's not going to be able to select any part of the eyes, for example, and things like that. Okay. But if you hover over any one of these, all right, it's going to give you that mask overlay. And of course, I have my mask overlay to kind of be that reddish color. Okay. So as I hover over those, it will show you what it looks like. All right. So let me go ahead and just zoom in here just so you can see a little bit better. Okay. So that's the entire person. All right. There's the facial skin. All right. Body skin is anything that is non-facial. It could be the neck, the chest, arms, things like that. Eyebrows. I don't know if you can kind of see it here. All right. The sclera, or the whites of the eyes. The pupils. Now she looks like a demon because they're, the red overlay. You can select lips. You can select teeth if they're showing. Hair. And of course, the clothing. All right. And of course, it did not pick up the hat because it's on the head. The AI has a few flaws, obviously. It says, clothing is from the neck down. And so the hat kind of gets like left behind. Okay. All right. So we can select an entire person, or we can select individual parts. So for example, let's say I wanted to, let me just uncheck. Yeah, it's not going to do it. I just want to work, let's say, on the face. Okay, so what I would do is I would say, okay, facial skin, eyebrows, the whites of the eyes, and the pupils, and the lips, and the teeth. All right, all those parts are the parts that create the face. All right, now depending on your workflow, you can say, you know what, I really don't want to touch the eyes, so you can leave the eyes out. You can leave the teeth out, whatever it is. So in this case, I'm just going to select everything that is face. Once you make your selections, comes your next decision. Okay, you can have Lightroom generate individual masks for all of these parts, or one mask for all those parts. Okay. Now, there's nothing that prevents you from going back and generating new masks. So for example, in this case, I'm going to generate a mask for all these 6 parts that I've selected. All right. So basically I'm just saying, roll that into, oops, I didn't do it right, did I? Mask, face, eyebrows, sclera, lips, teeth. Uncheck the create 6 different masks. All right. Make sure, create 6 separate masks. Make sure you uncheck it if you don't want them. All right. Now we hit create mask. There we go. All right. And what you'll notice, that it created a single mask, all right, called mask 1, but in it you have the different parts. All right, so it's not like it's going to put everything into one. Technically it is. It's under the mask 1. So it's not like you can work on any of these individual parts within this one mask. It's going to work on everything together. But it allows you to, if at any point you say, you know what, I don't want to include, let's say, the eyes. All right, you change your mind. You can say, okay, let's take the pupils and delete the pupils. So there it is. Oop. Click on the ellipsis, delete person 3, iris, and pupil. All right. So you can delete that. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and delete the sclera, or the whites of the eyes. Okay. So now I can say, all right, I know I wanted to work on the entire face, but as I'm working on it, it's really doing something funky with the eyes. I can go ahead and remove the eyes from the equation. All right. I can also say, well, it's doing something funky with the teeth. Let's remove the teeth. Now we're just left with skin. Okay. And as with any masks, I suggest renaming it. Just double click and rename it. If you just got 1 or 2 masks, you don't have to bother renaming it. But if you're going to be running up a count of masks, 6, 7, 8 masks, at that point, you might want to rename them just to keep yourself organized. Okay. And of course, if you single click on that little icon, it will expand and collapse the list. Okay. Just as we can remove a particular part, we can always add it back in. All right. So if we say, oh, you know what? I should not have removed the teeth. We can go back, add, where is it? Select people. Person number 3. We're going to, here's, click on the teeth. Okay. Create mask. And there it is. It's added it back into our stack. All right, so you do have that flexibility as you're working. All right, and of course, it is very dependent on your image and what it is that you're trying to do. Make sense? Okay. All right. Of course, what I did not do starting out is what I normally suggest is kind of create a roadmap as to what it is that you want to do so that you're not second guessing your adjustments. Okay. But we're just kind of going into this a little bit blind. So I have the face selected. Once you have the face selected, just like any of the masking features, you have access to all the adjustments. Okay. So in this case, maybe we want to bring down the highlights, bring down the whites, add a little bit of contrast. Okay. There we go. And while you are working in that mask section, if you go to, the main icon, the larger box here, all the way on the right-hand side, there's the little eyeball icon. At any point, you can click on that icon. It's going to disable and enable that effect. So you can check how it looks and compare before and after, okay? All right, which I suggest you do. That way you don't, kind of overdo your effect. All right, so a little bit, maybe I want to bring my clarity down, give her a little bit of smoothing to skin texture. All right, not too much because, you don't want to make it look, horrendously bad. But just, a couple points down. You can experiment to see if reducing the texture also helps. All right. And you do have access to dehaze. Now, the dehaze slider is one that kind of gets mixed reviews. A lot of people are stuck on the term dehaze, and they immediately think about, taking these landscape shots, and there's a lot of haze that's kind of occluding everything, and if we bring the dehaze down, we can cut through that haze, and that slider is just for landscape photos. Absolutely not. The dehaze slider, what it's doing is it's taking anything that is kind of washed out and boosting the saturation and the contrast on it. All right. So keep that in mind, because I tend to use the dehaze slider a lot in order to bring out a little bit more of that contrast without actually touching the contrast slider. So let's see what that looks like, for example. All right, so this is the contrast slider. If I go up, what it's doing is it's darkening the dark pixels and lightening the light pixels a little bit. All right, in order to create a little bit of a division in the midtones. Okay. Dehaze works a little bit differently. All right, so here's the dehaze, and as we go up, you can see that it's not pushing as much contrast in the darker end of the luminosity range. Okay, it's keeping it more from midtones to the light range. All right, so that targets a separate section of your exposure range or your dynamic range. Okay, however, you can't push, the dehaze, you can't push it too far, as well as the contrast. You can't push it too far, because what happens is it also pushes saturation. So what I tend to do is, if I have to push it a little bit further than normal, I just make sure that I go to my, that's my curve. I go to my saturation and pull that down just a touch in order to balance it out. Okay, because the one thing you don't want in a portrait is an overly colorful face. All right, the predominant color in skin tones across the board is orange. All right, some variation of orange is found in literally every skin tone. All right, I don't care how pale or how dark you are, the underlying color is orange. So you don't want to boost that orange color out during your edits, because then it's, people are going to start looking like Oompa Loompas. All right, so if you push it a little bit too far, just counter it a little bit with saturation. All right. You can also boost the skin tone a little bit more to the warmer side, maybe a few points into the warm side. Again, just keep an eye, make sure you're not oversaturating the skin with color. All right. We want to give a tone. We don't want them to look colored. Okay. All right. Any questions on selectively selecting masks? Boy, that made sense. I can talk today on being selective.
Can you go back and forth?
Oh yeah. All right, so actually here, I'll do it here, before, or before, after, before, after. Okay, before, after. All right.
Thank you.
All right, so, okay. Obviously, I pushed this a little bit, so she's not looking good, in my opinion. All right. I'm doing this just to kind of demonstrate certain things. All right. But while we're here, the one thing I want to point out to you when you're doing any kind of retouching on people is, depending on where they are in the spectrum of light to dark, their skin tone is, you're going to target different things. All right. People with very, very light skin, you are going to target the shadows a little bit more. You're going to pay attention more to the shadows than anything else. All right. Once they cross the threshold, that middle mid-tone threshold, and their skin color starts going into the dark, you have to pay closer attention to the highlights than the shadows. Okay. Especially if the person has slightly oily or shiny skin. Darker skin tends to, well, let me take a step back. Okay. When we photograph something, what we are actually photographing is the light bouncing off the surface of the object we're photographing. So we have the effect of angle of incidence, angle of reflection, correct? Right. So if we have, let's say, in a standard portrait format, we have the light 45 degrees up, 45 degrees to the side, illuminating more on one side of the face than the other. Okay. We're going to see that one side of the face is lighter than the other side. Okay. The light that we see on the skin is actually a reflection of our light source. All right. It's a different way of thinking about this because we're so used to just not thinking about, the fact that, we have so much ambient light that's just there and we can see the person. We're not really thinking about what is causing that, what light is actually influencing what we're seeing. All right. It doesn't become very obvious until we are working with a single light in a portrait studio. That's when we really, really see the influence of that light on our subject. So when we photograph a subject, what we're looking at is the reflection of our light on their skin. All right. When somebody is very fair, the reflection isn't as obvious. Okay. It's not as obvious to our eyes. What becomes more obvious is the shadow side. All right. That's why when we're working with anybody mid-tones to lighter skin tone, all right, we're working with shadows. When we get into people with darker skin, and like I said, especially people who have oily skin, or people who have, a lot of makeup that isn't quite matte, all right? This is where the shape of your light source becomes more prevalent. And you have to be careful with this because, You know, you don't want a square highlight on your subject's forehead because that is a direct representation of your softbox, you know, coming in at 45 degrees. All right. It becomes very, very, very pronounced. Okay. So when we're dealing with darker skin tones, we're going to manipulate the highlights a little bit more than we do with, you know, fair skin. All right. So that's a pro tip for the day. All right. All right. Let me not make her look so dark. All right. So I'm gonna bring this dehaze slider. I think I'm just gonna kill the dehaze and just add a little contrast. Okay. So when you are retouching anything, all right, you don't want to kill your shadows too much. All right. And I find that a lot of beginners, they're trying to throw light into the shadows for some reason. All right. Don't kill your shadows. There's a fine line between pulling the shadows out and killing the shadows. All right. So what do I mean by pulling the shadows out? Pulling the shadows out is anything that is in shadow, like for example, her hair is very dark, right? And the areas where the hair kind of is right next to the neck, okay, that's where we start getting some really deep shadows, okay? We don't want to kill those shadows, all right? And we don't want to bring it out so much because what happens is now, if we are lighting these shadows, meaning we're pulling the shadows out, our attention is now going to start traveling to these areas that should be darker. All right. We've discussed in the past finding that balance between areas of light where you want the eyes to go and areas of darkness that kind of recede and push the eye into the areas of light, correct? Okay. So in this case, let's see, maybe we kind of want to keep the shadows a little bit. All right. So again, we can look before, after, before, after. Notice how she doesn't look as shiny here. She's kind of shiny. Oops, wrong one. Shiny, not shiny. Shiny, not shiny, right? Okay. All right, so that one I think looks pretty darn good. All right, let's go ahead and zoom out. Whoops. All right. And before, after, before, after. Okay. All right. Now, one of the things that really kind of gets to me with a lot of female models is that they will put a ton a ton of time and effort into the makeup on their face and forget everything else. Okay. If they're fully clothed, it's not a big deal. But if they have anything that shows shoulders, or maybe they have very short sleeves and a lot of their upper arms are showing, and if they're not doing anything with their neck, sometimes the makeup can look like they're wearing a mask, because you'll see that they put all this effort right along the jawline and making their cheeks perfect and their lips perfect and no shiny spots, okay? And then when you photograph them, because the reflectance of light off of makeup is different than the reflectance of light off of bare skin, it looks different. The colors are different. The luminosity is different. All right. And it becomes very painfully obvious that they're literally wearing a mask of makeup. Okay. So oftentimes you have to edit from the neck down the skin tone a little bit differently. And this allows you to really do that. So we've selected the face. I can now go ahead and create a new mask. We're going to select people. Going to go back to our first person. All right. And if you notice that now that we have a mask already in place, all right, because we have this this mask, all right, and oops, I'm sorry, this mask here for the face, okay. When we add a new mask, all right, and I selected, well, we add new mask, and I selected people. It's just going to go to this, all right, and we're going to go ahead and select the person. And now in this case, what I want is anything that is skin that's not face. All right, so body skin. All right, and that's it. All right, sometimes it'll say neck. They may have changed that. Okay. All right, and that's it. I don't want hair. We'll deal with that separate. Okay, so we'll create a mask. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to match the the tonality of the skin on her arm to what we did on her face. Okay, make sense? All right. So here it is. Without, and then, you know, it's just a matter of just dropping the exposure down a little bit. There's really not a lot of contrast to deal with, you know, so it's not like we need to worry about that. There's no shine. We can even take the clarity down a little bit, maybe. It's not too bad. So it doesn't take, excuse me. Doesn't take very much to make the arm match the face. All right, just a quick little fix. And of course, because they are separate masks, you can always tweak it later. All right, so right about there, that looks good. All right, and we can do this, and I'll just call it arm. Okay. And of course, because we have different people, you might want to be a little bit more explanatory in your labels. I'm just doing one person for this demonstration, so I'm just going to say arm, okay? All right. If you want to do a global before and after, all right, if you look on your keyboard, the backslash, that's the shortcut key from the develop module. That's a shortcut key for toggling between before and after, before and after. So that's before, that's after, okay? And of course, it's going to take all my settings before. So you can see that I cooled everything off initially. I brought my white balance a little bit more neutral, okay? But you can see how her skin tone has really just calmed down a lot, okay? All right, any questions so far? No? All right. Now, obviously, this is not any kind of high-end retouching. All right, so this young lady here, the first thing we notice is that well, she really doesn't have eyebrows. So let's see what this particular AI will do with not having eyebrows. Okay, so we're going to go back to our mask tool. We're going to create new. We're going to select people. All right, and again, now we have just this one. We're going to go to person number 2. Give it a second. It'll populate, and oh, it actually kind of did do something. So we're going to select the eyebrows. All right, and we're going to go ahead and create a mask just for the eyebrows. And if we bring the exposure down just a little bit, voila, she now has eyebrows. Okay, just like that. Okay, she may not appreciate it, who knows. Okay, all right. Okay, we will go ahead and continue this one. Okay, this lady here, she's wearing glasses, and you can see there's a little bit of a haze caused by light being reflected through the glass. So we can see if maybe we can clean something like that up, right? In particular, just the pupils. I want to see if I can, make her pupils a little bit darker. So we're going to go select people. We're going to select our first person, and as you can see, as I hover, we get that overlay. And we're going to go to the iris and pupil, and create a mask. Okay. And let's see, maybe we want to increase the contrast. I don't want to, let me bring this back. I don't want to bring the exposure down. All right. Why? Because, let me see if I can zoom in here. Okay. All right. Because the eyes have a little bit of a highlight. All right. If I just bring the exposure down, yes, it will darken the pupils, but it will also darken the highlights. So maybe, the exposure is not the best thing. All right. So we can see if we can increase our contrast. And that's not really doing a lot. All right. Maybe just bring down the shadows. That's really not doing much. Okay. So here we go. It's the blacks that are definitely going to do it. Maybe a little bit on the shadows. Okay. All right. So in this case, I'm using it in a way that I normally don't use it. Normally, for portrait work, we want to brighten the irises up a little bit. Okay. We want to bring the color out of the eyes. All right. Not darken it. The only reason I'm darkening it here is because I'm countering that haze that's being applied by the glasses. Okay. Of course, I could do something like grab a brush and I can brush over just the glass part of the glasses. It's more prevalent on this eye than anything else, but yeah, I'll just do that one. And we can apply the dehaze, all right? And you can see how it controls that haze on the glass. It doesn't require very much, but again, you got to watch out for that saturation. Notice how, let me just boost it up so you guys can see it. Notice as I boost that dehaze, look at the color that it's pulling out. Again, it's that orange color. All right. So we have to be careful. All right. I do want to darken it down a little bit, and then we'll just go to our color and we will bring the saturation down just a touch. Okay. If you want, you can also see if maybe cooling it off a little bit to counter that orange, because the orange is a warm tone. If we add a cool blue to it, if we cool the temperature, it'll counter it, okay? And what we're doing is just on the glasses alone. And you can see before and after, okay? All right, so very small little movements, very subtle, can really, really clean up that overall look, okay? So before, after, before. All right, so notice how my color balance was off a little bit, okay? Again, when I shoot these events, I don't bother with my camera settings. I know I can modify them in post. I do a global adjustment to all my images. All right, so what gets captured in camera is not what I am going to keep. All right, obviously her skin tone looks horrendous. So by cooling it off, we get a more natural look. Okay. All right. So fixing eye glare, very easy with a couple adjustments. All right. Bringing back eyebrows that are kind of, hard to see. Very easy. Okay. Controlling highlights to a certain degree. If the highlights are very contrasty, it becomes a little bit harder. In this case, the highlights on her skin were not heavy contrast. All right, so we're good to go there. All right, any questions on how to use these masks? I know we're just kind of touching small little bits and pieces here, Bri, but hopefully some of this helps.
Good, thanks.
All right. I'm
sorry, was that beta they were using, or is that available now?
The beta is, if you have the subscription service, you have beta available to you. Okay.
And so what you're using right now is available to everybody who has.
Oh no, I'm not using beta. This is Lightroom. This is already available in the current edition.
Great.
Okay. All right. The beta that I was referring to earlier is the beta version of Photoshop that has the text to image AI. All right. If anybody is interested in trying it out, all you got to do is go to your Creative Cloud account, and it'll list all the products that are available under your subscription. And if you look in, I should probably pull it up. Let me, Creative Cloud. Go Creative Cloud. Oh, they re-changed this a little bit. Okay. If you click on where it says apps right up at the top, okay, apps, it'll list all the apps that are part of your plan. You can see it right here, available in your plan. All right, Lightroom, Premiere, Fresco, Bridge, blah, 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 blah. Some of these are limited functionality, like the character animator. It's not the full version. It's just a limited version, things like that. But if you go to the left-hand side, in this menu here, all right, I just click on all apps if it's not there. About halfway down, a little bit more than halfway, you're going to see beta apps. Beta apps. If you click on that, it shows you all the beta apps that are available. If it's part of your plan, you're going to see the install button. Okay. If not, like for example, I do not subscribe to Illustrator, you'll see that it says try or buy. Okay. But if it's part of your package, it'll say install. Right. So here we have Photoshop. We have Premiere Rush, which I don't use. Bridge, also I don't use, and Character Animator, which I don't use. Okay. So now, if you click on install, this will not overwrite your current version of Photoshop. It's going to create a separate install. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's going to be, you're going to have two versions of Photoshop on your system. Okay, the current version, which is the one that's linked with everything, and the beta version, right, that allows you to try out new features before they get rolled out into prime time. Okay. So that's where the generative AI is currently residing. Okay. The other thing you can't do is you cannot open an image from Lightroom into Photoshop beta by default. All right. It will only default to your current version. Okay, there is a workaround, and if anybody is interested in knowing the workaround, you can private message me. I'll teach you how to do it. All right, it's fairly simple. Okay, so that's how you get it. Any questions? Me personally, I don't bother with beta versions for a couple of reasons. One, why bother? All right. They're still working on them. What's it going to do? Satisfy my curiosity? I can wait. Secondly, I don't want it taking up all that extra room on my system. Okay. If you have a system that's already, struggling with space, this is just going to kill that space. All right. And third, I don't have a morbid curiosity to try all these things. So, but anyway, but I do keep abreast of what's coming down the pipeline just by watching these other people that will load beta into their system. Okay. Any other questions? No questions? Come on, Gloria. I told you next time you better have some questions for me. And here it is next time. Putting you in the hot seat.
I'm going to try to fix the photos that I have with this, what you teach us today.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some pictures that I couldn't fix them.
Right.
And you know them.
Yeah. Let's see. Do I have any? I guess I can go into my clients here. Oh yeah, I can use her. I can use her. No, I can't use this one. This is a JPEG that she sent me. Okay. Okay. Maybe we can use this one here. let me create a virtual copy. Da, 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 da. And we will do an edit on the virtual copy here. Okay. So here we have, you know, some fairly shiny skin. Okay. So let's just do a little bit of a walkthrough here. Okay. Let's actually zoom back out. So first, look at this mask. All right. This is 2019. All right. This image 2019. This is way before the facial recognition AI. Look at that horrendous masking job that I did. That's done with a brush. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll kill that mask. All right, what's this one do? This is my ground burn. We'll keep that one. Okay. All right, so we'll call it ground burn. All right. Okay. This right here is something that I use a lot. All right. Notice how it just pulls the eye up. Okay. Brings the focus up. Okay. This is one I suggest you create as a preset. All right. That way, with a single button, you can just add it and you don't have to worry about it. Okay. All right. So we're going to create, select people. And because it's only one person, we're only going to have that one icon. All right. We don't get the multiple icons as before. But we still do have to click on it in order to generate all the different parts. And just like before, we can select whatever it is that we want to do. All right. Now, before I even do anything, can you see what I mean by wearing a cosmetic mask? Can you see it here in this image? Look at the tonality on her face in relation to the skin on her neck and chest area. All right. Notice how there's a little bit more color in her face. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit darker. Okay. It's also a little shinier. We can actually see. Actually, let me go ahead and delete, escape out of here for a second. We'll back that out. All right, we can see my lights in here. Okay. All right, and can I zoom in a little bit closer? Okay. Yeah. All right. I want you to watch this. That's my light. Mm-hmm. That's my light. Okay. That's my big 24 by 36 softbox right there. Okay. So be aware, okay, that what you are looking at is a reflection of your lights. All right. So what we need to do is we need to control that. We need to balance the face with the chest. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and create a new mask, select people. We're going to select her. And we're going to make one for just a face. Okay. Create a new mask, select people, select her. And we're going to select the body skin. All right. Because we're going to work on both those separately because they both require different settings. Okay. So we'll work on the neck first. All right. Obviously, the neck. Let's see. Obviously, the neck area is a lot brighter than the face. So what do we got to do? We got to lower the exposure, right? All right. So actually, let's rename this face, and this one we'll rename chest. Okay. All right. So we're going to take that and we're going to just lower the exposure down just a little bit. Okay. Now, I know I've mentioned this trick in the past. I'll reiterate it here. Take a step back from your monitor, and while you're looking at it, give it a squint your eyes, all right, and look at the monitor, all right, and that's going to allow you to very quickly judge luminosity, because it gets rid of all the detail, all right, by squinting your eyes. You're forcing your eyes to kind of blur things. All right, so what we're doing is removing detail, and we now have areas of light and dark. All right, so we can see, all right, just by squinting,
Mm-hmm.
all right, whether we are on target with the darkness. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to bring attention up to the face. So it would be nice if the face is kind of like the more prominent area. And typically, all right, how do we do that? By making the face a little bit brighter than everything else, correct? All right, but in this case, we have a very light background. So what we need to do is we need to keep in mind that we do have that light background, and we either darken the background, all right, or we lighten it, but we don't want it to be around the same, kind of like the same value as the face. All right, so if we squint a little bit, we can see that the background and the face all share that same value. All right, so that's something that we're going to have to address. Okay. All right. So the neck area, all right, maybe I want to boost the contrast a little bit on the neck. Oops. Let's make sure that we got that selected. Okay, yeah. All right, it's not really doing much. All right, so let's see. If we bring the shadows down, yeah, there we go. Shadows, we're getting a little bit more contrast. Turn it off, turn it on. There we go. It's looking a little bit more natural. Okay. All right. And then now we can go to the face. All right. Obviously, the face has a lot of shiny spots, which is in what? The highlights or the whites? Trick question. Who can give me an answer? Are we looking at the, all right, these highlights in her face? Okay. Let me zoom in here. Okay. What we want to do is we want to take these and we want to control them. All right. We want to reduce the contrast on those areas. Okay. We want to reduce them down. Okay. Do we target that with our highlights slider or with our whites slider?
Highlights.
Okay, why? Making
That's what you want reduced. You want the highlights just in that area though. Would you
okay.
use a brush?
Yeah, all right, but don't confuse the fact that we call those highlights. Don't confuse that with the slider highlights. Okay, just be aware. Okay, just because they share the same name doesn't mean that they do the same thing. So be careful with that. But there is a certain truth to it. Okay. All right. So what does the white slider target? Well, it targets anything that is 100% white and just under that, right? Okay. So if we look at the value here, actually, let's open up our histogram here. If I hover over a certain area, what I want you to do is I want you to look at this section here underneath the histogram. All right. Right now, it doesn't show anything other than my camera settings. But as soon as I float over the image, you're going to see these numbers, right? Okay. Let me see. Let me go over to where it's this right here. Is that the... No, that's not even the highest. Okay. Let me see if I can find a really, really bright spot. I'm not. Okay. I think this is the brightest spot. Okay. All right. We are hovering at around 90%. Okay. 90%. 100% is pure white. 0% is pure black. Okay. So we are at about 90%. Okay. So we got 90% light gray. Okay. It's not white. All right. So we are, if, let me go back to here. All right. We got 100% here. Oh, I'm being kind of squished into that corner way over there. All right. And we have 0 here, right? Yeah. 90% is really not even that. 90% is like here, right in this area. Okay. So that falls in our whites section. Okay. But all the other, the tonality around it is also like right adjacent to it. Okay. And it's kind of straddling that break between the whites and the highlights. Okay. So now what we have to keep in mind is we have 2 sliders we can now move. We have the whites slider and we have the highlights slider. Okay. So depending on where the tones are, in this case, the tones are 90%. Okay. So if we target the 100% and move that over, okay, move it down, what it's going to do is it's going to push that 90% into like 85, 80, right? Okay. And anything that is that 90% and higher, all right, is going to push it. So anything that is white will now start looking gray and it starts becoming mud. So we have to be careful how far we push anything from the whites into the grays. Make sense? But if we target the next slider over, which is our highlights, all right, and we're targeting the 90%, which is on the far end, we're pulling that 90 into the 85. All right. And because we're pulling from the other side, it's leaving that 100% alone. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So because we're leaving that 100% alone, we lessen the risk of it turning muddy gray. All right, which is what we don't want. Okay. So we're going to pull our highlights down. All right, and we can see if it'll do anything. It's really not doing very much, is it? Mm-mm. Oh, am I? Oh, I'm
I
on
don't
the
know.
wrong mask. I'm on the wrong mask. There we go. Let's go. Let's go to the face. That's why it wasn't doing anything. All right, here we go. We're gonna take our highlights down. There we go. And yeah, we're. Oh yeah. See, as soon as I start bringing the whites down, notice how her whole entire face is starting to darken and muddy up. Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't want to. All right. So we're gonna pull the highlights down. All right. Let's see what that looks like. Before, after, before, after. All right. And then we can compensate by opening up our shadows a little bit. All right. Maybe reducing the contrast. All right. Let's see what that looks like. Before, after, before, after. Okay. Let me back it up. Before, after. Okay. All right, so it's not doing too much to the highlights. Those highlights are really, 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 really in there. All right, so we're going to have to try something else. Okay. All right, because that's not. Yeah, okay, there we go, a little bit. Okay, and bring the shadows. Okay. All right, so globally, all right, now here's where terminology can kind of cause confusion, all right? Because I can use the word globally, all right? Making a global adjustment means it's making an adjustment to the entire image, okay? In this particular case, we're using a local adjustment for the entire face. But within the entire face, there are localized clusters of problem areas. So in relation to just the face, all right, if we select just the face and make adjustments to the entire face, we're doing a global effect to the face, but we can still dive in and make local adjustments to the face. And I think that's what we're going to need to do here. Okay. So a global adjustment on the face mask is not controlling the issue. As a matter of fact, we are losing contrast overall, and that's not what we want because it's going to make the face look flat. So obviously we cannot use this face mask to fix our problems. All right, so let's go, let's see if we can kind of sort of reduce it. So if we bring the highlights down, we bring the contrast down, open up the shadows. All right, so one way of looking at this is saying, okay, if I deconstruct it to the point where it looks horrendous, all right, see how flat she looks, all right? But if we look at the overall contrast, all right, on those highlights, the overall contrast in the highlights has diminished. Make sense? You see that, right? Okay. So what we've done at this point is we have deconstructed the contrast structure of her face. All right. We've flattened it out. Now what we can do is we can build on top of that, create a new mask. And I'm going to go with a brush tool. All right. There's a couple other things that we can try. I don't know if they'll be effective, but we can try it. All right. I am going to give it a nice big feather. All right. And I am just going to paint on those highlight areas. All right. And if you need to adjust the size of your mask or your brush, just use the left and right brackets, just like you would in Photoshop. All right. And I'm just selecting the areas that are like the really brightest. And now I can see if I can bring those highlights slider down. Okay, there we go. All right, so that does a little bit more. Okay, see it brought it down a lot more. Okay, see if we can paint a little bit more there. Okay. All right. Remember what I said earlier about the whites? Watch this. All right. I pushed it a lot, okay, but notice how it pushed all those highlights into the gray. Okay, that's that push, because what we're doing is we're now taking that 100% and saying that 100% is no longer going to be 100%. That is now going to be, what is it, like 85%? Ooh, not even, it's like 50%. So it's almost middle gray, okay, which is not where we want to go. All right. Okay. So we've reduced the highlights. All right. Now what I can do is create another mask. I'm going to go with the brush again. And I'm now going to go in and I'm just going to kind of right along here. All right. And I'm going to bring the exposure down. Oh, that's giving me less saturation. Have to be careful with that. All right, maybe not the exposure. Let's try bringing the shadows down. There we go. All right, so we'll paint some shadows back in. In order to give her a little bit of contrast, right underneath the nose. All right, make the brush appropriate. Okay, let's see, we'll put some underneath the chin. Okay, we'll lower the highlights a little bit. All right, and add a little bit around the eyes. Okay. Now we're starting to bring back some dimension to her face. Okay. So what we did is we deconstructed and then we're just going to construct back a little bit. Okay. So before, after, less shiny. I'm overworking a little bit. I have to be a little bit more finesse than this. But you get the point, right?
Mm-hmm. Can you change the background color?
Yes. Yes, I can. All right, so let's see. We'll reduce the contrast a little bit on the overall face. And let's see. That's looking better. All right, notice how she looks shiny here before, and now she doesn't look as shiny. Okay. All right. All right, so we'll do that. All right, for the background, another local adjustment, create mask, and there's actually one here called, oops, select background. Select background. Now, yeah, a word of warning, it really depends on what kind of image you get with the kind of results you're going to get. I think we're going to get pretty good results here. But the more cluttered your image is, the the varying results you can get. Okay, so in this case, it's not too bad. All right, so we have our background. So at this point, we got to say, all right, our skin tone and our background in the original image were pretty even. All right, I've taken her skin tone and I've darkened it up a little bit. If I take that background and darken it up just a little bit, we're going to be back to being that one-on-one. So I can either darken it up by a lot, all right? But at that point, you have to be careful that you don't start creating halos, all right? Because that's just not going to look good, okay? Or we can start brightening it up a little bit more. So now we have dark against light, okay? Now, a lot of people say, well, I thought the rule was that our eye goes to areas of light first, and then areas of darkness kind of recede. Yes, that is typically the case, all right? Unless you're putting something dark against something light. Then in that case, we tend to go to the area of darkness first because it's against a larger field of light. But within that, we want the face to come forward, okay? So in this case, what I would do is probably just maybe darken the hair down a little bit, all right? Probably not too much, okay? Well, let's see. Brush, I'll just do this, okay, and see what happens. I'm going to bring our exposure down just
How
a
would a
touch.
vignette look when you're all done?
Well, there is a little bit of a vignette, a natural vignette going on here. I created a vignette with a light. I actually put a small light on the background. So if you notice, here, let me get out of this. If you notice in the before, you can see how it's a little bit on the dark side in the corners. Okay. All right. And you can see there's a little bit of like a halo around her head. That's from a light that I put there. Okay. So in this case, what I'm doing is I exaggerated the lightness of the background. All right. And actually my background image or my background mask, if you notice right here, the mask kind of did a terrible job capturing her shoulder. All right. So I think we're going to need to fix that. So we're going to, what are we going to do? We are going to subtract with a brush, and we're going to subtract that area. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Before and after. All right. So now she steps forward off of that background because we pushed the contrast further apart. Okay. Whereas before, there we go, before, her face and that background were so similar color-wise and tone-wise. Okay. So that little bit of oomph goes a long way. Okay. All right. Let's add another mask. Select people. We'll bring her eyebrows back in. Create mask. Okay. And let me go ahead and zoom in. Kind of did a terrible job with it. You can see a little bit right in here that, all right. So we're just going to darken them up a little bit. Okay. And we're going to subtract. We're going to use our brush. And we're just going to subtract this from up here. I don't know why it's selected up there as part of her eyebrow, Who knows? Okay. Let's add brush. Okay. Feather. There. That works a little bit better. Okay. All right. Oops. Too much. Too much. Okay. There we go. Obviously we want to keep her kind of sort of looking like herself. All right. You know, she has very, very light eyebrows, so we're just going to touch them down just a tiny little bit. You can see 0.1. You know, let's do 0.2. Okay. That tiny little bit, okay, just makes it speak a little bit more. Okay. All right. So let's zoom out, close those up. All right, before and after, before and after. All right, a lot less shine, a little bit more definition in the eyebrows. Obviously, I'm kind of rushing it a little bit. You do want to pay a little bit of attention. All right, one more, just for shits and giggles. Create, select people, select her. We give her the teeth, create mask. And for this one, Lightroom actually has a preset. And how do you get to those? Right here, it'll say preset, and by default, it'll just say custom. But if you click on that little double arrow, it'll give you a list of presets. The first few presets are based on the sliders that are already there. All right. But if you go further down, we have burn, which darkens, dodge, which lightens. All right. We have iris enhance, which literally just brightens and adds a little bit of saturation to the existing colors. Soften skin, which you saw me do earlier. And teeth whitening. So we just click on that. And let me zoom in here. We got all these little markers all over the place here. Okay. So before, all right, we're picking up a lot of warm tones from everything that was, you know, done. All right. So that just winds it back up. If that's too much, okay, we can go to our panel here, and if you notice, all it's doing is it's increasing the exposure and decreasing the saturation. That's literally all it is. All right. So if you say, well, that looks a little bit unnatural, we can always pull that back. Okay. So that looks a little bit better. All right. Still brightens it up, but without making it, you know, fake white looking. All right.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Lips. I don't think the lips need anything. Okay. All right. So we really can't do a lot of like heavy duty burning and dodging here. All right. But I did dodge down the highlights. All right. And I did burn up a little bit along the edges. Okay. And around the cheeks and nose. Okay. You can do a lot more in Photoshop because you have kind of like better control overall, not just through masks, but through luminosity adjustments and color adjustments. They're a little bit more fine-tuned in Photoshop than they are in Lightroom. So I won't be doing a high-end retouch in Lightroom. I just wouldn't. But you know, for general headshots, they're not glamour shots. You know, you just got to give them something that it looks like them, looks a little bit better than them, you know, without it making it look like they're on the front cover of Vogue magazine. All right. You can do that very easily right here in Lightroom. Okay. All right. Okay. There is one section that's bothering me, and that's this little shadow area right here, that little spot. So I'm going to go ahead, create brush. I'm going to really feather my brush. All right. And I'm just going to paint right there. And all that is a little bit of a dark spot. So we're going to bring the saturation down just a touch and bring the shadows down just, oops, bring it up just a touch. Yes. Exposure. There we go. All right. Close that up. Zoom back out. There we go. Much better. All right. Before, after, before, after. Okay. All right. One more. Radial. There we go. And just give it a little bit of contrast, a little bit of shadows, and just open it up just a touch. There we go. Before, after. Yeah, there we go. Brighten it up. Brighten her face up. Okay. Any questions on any of those?
I got a lot out of this one. This was very good for me, and
Awesome.
yeah, it was you explained it perfectly and made it simple for me. For me to understand it's something. You did something good.
All right.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. Do you get what I mean by kind of pre-planning what it is that you want to do? Are you kind of getting any of that, or you just, all right? Okay. And like I've said in the past, all your edits, it doesn't matter what you're editing, whether it's a person, a landscape, a flower, your pet dog, you're doing one of very few manipulations. You're either manipulating the light, or you're manipulating the color, and on rare instances, you're manipulating the texture. Okay? But pretty much the only two is light and color. Light and color. Dodge and burn, saturation control. Pretty much it. Okay? And, you know, obviously, when we do anything with Photoshop, you know, my go-to tool is that curves adjustment, because that curves adjustment allows me to really manipulate light and dark. That's its main job, but I can also manipulate color with it. All right. You have to understand it a little bit better, but you can also manipulate color. All right. Okay. Awesomeness. Any other questions?
I have a quick question about that last tool you just put up there, the linear grade.
Oh, the circular gradient.
Yes. So I've been actually using that quite a bit the last few days.
It's my favorite tool here.
So I noticed that there's a little line. There's when you make one, there's two lines, and I guess I really don't understand if I have any control over that second line and what it's doing.
Okay. Let me pull up a different. We'll put Jessica away for now. Let me pull up a. We'll do this one. Okay. Radial gradient. Okay, so radial gradient creates a circular, whether it's a complete circle or an oval, it's circular. It'll create a circular mask when you first click and start making that mask. It builds it from the center. So wherever you click, I tend to click that in the center of what it is that I want to affect. So let's say, for example, I want to create a vignette here. All right, I'm going to find where I want my vignette to be, and I will go ahead and click and drag. All right. And as you can see, there are two lines. An outer line and an inner line. The outer line has these little, won't let me do the drawing. Okay. It has these little dots, north, south, east, and west, right? That allows you to stretch and adjust the size, literally the size. Okay. If you hold the shift key, all right, it will do everything at the same time. Okay. If you hold the alt key, it will move it rather than from the center. See how it moves from the center outward on both sides. Okay. If you hold the alt key, it will just move it from that one particular, whatever side you grab. Okay, makes sense? So.
But it told me that yesterday.
Control op.
20 minutes.
Yeah. Control option does the whole thing. All right. Let's see. What is it? Control shift alt. No, control. Oh, no, shift key does it all. Alt or option key will do it from one side. Okay. All right. There's this little double dot on the bottom, and if you go over that little dot, it's going to give you that kind of curved arrow. You don't need to be on there. Anywhere along the outer perimeter, it's going to show you that double arrow, the little curved arrow. All right, but you have to be fairly close to that outer line. Okay, and that allows you to rotate the mask, the oval. Okay. All right, the inner one is controlled by this little red dot here at the bottom. All right. And what's that?
I said barely visible.
Oh, yeah. Let me let's see. Will my zoom work? Oh yeah, it will. There it is.
No, I say barely visible because I didn't see it when I was working on mine.
Oh,
there was a
okay.
way to control that. That was part of my question.
Yeah, so what that does is it controls the feather edge. Okay. And you can probably see it up here in the clouds. Actually, if I zoom in, this might not work too good. Oh yeah, okay. Hopefully you can see. All right. From this outer line outward, no effect is being applied. Okay. Nothing. All right. So we got 0 from this line outward. Okay. From that line inward, that's our feather edge. Okay. And it goes from 0 to 100. Okay. And it applies that 100% of the effect right at that line. All right. Make sense? Let me zoom back out. All right. So I can control how much of a feather I want on that edge. So let's apply a exposure. All right, I'm going to apply a lot. Okay. So you can see that it's got a very soft gradation as it comes into the center, right? If I pull that out, you're going to notice that it's a lot more sharp, right? All right, there we go. And if I bring it in, it's a lot more subtle. Okay. So understanding this will allow you to really create some funky effects. All right. Remember, primarily what you're controlling with this is light. Okay. All right. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to create kind of like a vignette. So what I'm going to do is, right now it's darkening everything on the inside. If I go over here, there's a little invert button. All right. If I click on that, you're going to notice that it inverts the mask. So now what we have, it's still the same. All right. It's just reversed. The inner circle becomes 0% of our effect. And then from that inner circle to the outer circle, we have our feather edge where we go from 0 to 100. And then anything beyond that is 100% of our effect. Okay. So in this case, we have a very serious vignette. Obviously, we don't want it to be that serious. Okay. So maybe something like that. Okay. And let's just maybe bring this out a little bit more. There we go. All right. So we can create this nice little vignette. It's different than the post-crop vignette that comes with Lightroom. That tends to be a little bit more noticeable because of the way it builds the vignette. All right. Making a vignette this way can often feel a little bit more natural. The other nice thing about building a vignette this way is, depending on what it is that you're looking to bring attention to, if it's not dead center, you can shift your vignette over to the side. You can angle your vignette to meet your needs. Okay. So let's go here and we'll just increase that, decrease this. All right. And we'll make it -1 just for making it obvious. Okay. All right. So keep this one in mind. All right. I'm going to go ahead and create a virtual copy. On that virtual copy, I'm going to remove this mask. So we'll just delete the mask. Okay. And I am going to go to my effects here. And oops, nope, not effects. Where am I? Yeah, it is effects, right? Oh yeah, duh. My effects, post-crop vignette. Okay. All right, and I'm just going to add a little bit of vignette. I want to see if I can match them. Let me go and control and do a side by side. Okay. All right, look at the vignette on the 2. All right, this one hits just the corners. All right, and leaves a big portion untouched, right? Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go and see if we can fix that. All right. Oh, let's go back to our develop. All right. We can control the midpoint. All right. How much away from the middle our vignette goes. All right. And obviously, we got a lot going on the outside, so I'm going to bring my midpoint in to kind of match it. But notice that it's hitting the center of the image, whereas my other one, I kind of shifted it over to the bridge. Okay. The other thing we can control is the roundness. All right. And you can see as I start going to the corners, filling in the corners, we start looking rather kind of fake. All right. Let me see that. All right. So our vignette, all right, is more square than it is round, because what it's applying, it's applying it from the edges of our image inward. All right. And as it comes in, it softens the corners to the point where in the center, it now looks rounded. But towards into the corners, it's more of a rectangular, a soft cornered rectangular shape. So the vignette is going to look totally different with this tool than if you use the circular mask. Okay. So for that reason, if I just want to pull in a little bit in the corners, this will do the job. Little landscape job, that's not too critical. This will do the job. If you want to push it to an art image, all right, don't do this. All right. If you've been doing this, don't. All right. Take it out of your workflow. All right. Go with something like this with the radial gradient. The other thing that you can do with a radial gradient for a vignette that you cannot do with the vignette tool is you can stack them. Okay. You can stack them. So, and oh yeah, here it is. Okay. Let me go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Okay. And I'm just going to expand this. Let me go here. All right. I'm going to create a new radial gradient. All right. And I'm just going to go right here. All right. I'm going to invert, and I'm going to, oh, actually, no, let's not invert. I'm just going to brine up that little part. Okay. And maybe I want to make it a little thinner. Okay. So we're going to boost the exposure up. Okay. All right. So, oops. Let's go at fit. Actually, let's go before, after, before, after. Okay. All right. So obviously I have to exaggerate the tonality a little bit to read across on video a little bit more. Okay. I wouldn't go as heavy-handed, but hopefully you get the idea of how much more natural this looks. All right. The same thing can be used for whatever image. Okay. Let's see. You got something with people. All right, here we go. My grandson. We'll do my grandson here. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead, add a radial. All right. We're going to make it a little bit larger to kind of fit. Well, let's actually go really large with the outer and just to him on the inner circle. And we're going to bring the exposure up. Okay. Voila. All right. Fixed the entire image with one friggin' mask. Okay. right? And then from here, it's just creative, all right? Creative, all right? Presets, there's my ground burn, okay? All right, I'll just angle, oops. I'll just angle it a little bit and maybe bring it down. All right, my ceiling burn, another preset, okay? I'm gonna bring that all the way down. Okay, and maybe I'll do just the highlights. Okay, and bring the highlights up on here. And there we go. Okay. Before, after, before, after. Okay. Just with a radial and a couple linear masks. Okay, it doesn't take a lot to really make your images pop. All right, you just got to, kind of think about where you want the light to go. All right, where you want the light to go is where you want the eye to go. All right, okay. We covered quite a bit. For an evening where I had nothing planned, you guys are awesome. This is great. Okay. Any last minute questions on anything we covered? Gave you something to chew on, right, Gloria? Dodge and burn, dodge and burn. That's all you need, dodge and burn. Any other questions?
Good. Here. Here's the great duck. Give me something to go practice with.
I can see what else, but I've pulled a lot of pictures.
Nice. All right, we got.
I do like that. Excuse me, radial gradient idea for pulling subjects out like that. I mean, that's faster than having it find the subject mask.
Yeah. I'll use this typically before I use any of the people masks, because the people masks creates a hard edge. This doesn't. All right. This allows you to blend in a little bit better. All right. But there is a time and a place. Sometimes you do need that definitive delineation between the subject and background. All right. So for example, some of those indoor shots, putting a circular gradient, kind of make it look like they're in the spotlight. All right, because the wall behind them is also going to be lit or darkened, depending on what you do. So it's going to end up looking like a spotlight, and you may not want that. So at that point, selecting the subject makes better sense. Okay.
I think the next thing they'll probably do is have a feather on the person there, where you adjust the amount of feather, even when you pick out a particular person or object. I think that's the next thing.
Yeah. You're so right. There's been several times when I'm working with those masks and I'm like, if I could only do what I can do in Photoshop to these masks, is apply a feather. That'd be so perfect. All right, so let's bring the whites down. Let's see. All right. Da-da-da. Radial. let's bring the blacks up, or the shadows. Let's keep the shadows. There we go. Add a little bit of texture, some clarity, some dehaze. There we go. Okay, I'm done. Before, after, before, after. One mask. One mask. Yes, I'm showing off. Yes, I'm showing off, but I want to hammer in how you don't need to go crazy with editing in order to get really good results. Okay? All right. Anyways, that's it for today. We definitely went over time, which is fine by me. Okay. As always, I really do appreciate you guys. Does anybody have anything they want to share about what's going on in your own community today? Anything? No? Okay. All right. So as always, keep a lookout for what I post on the Facebook page. Especially when I get word on the lighting workshop. As soon as I get word from Jesse, I'm going to go ahead and make the event page and link it to, it'll be through Milford Photos meetup page, because there will be a fee. I suggested $40. Hopefully he'll keep it at 40. He won't go higher. All right. I don't think he will. But there will be a fee for that particular workshop. You pay for it online through meetup.com, and hopefully we'll see you for that. It's going to be in Milford for that particular workshop. Hopefully we'll see you at the Multiplicity photo shoot. If you're interested in the zoo, the only fee for that is just the entry fee into the zoo, which is, I don't know, like $12. I haven't been to the zoo in a couple of years because of COVID. So, but anyway, hopefully we'll see you then. As always, I really, really appreciate you guys, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Doc.
Good night, Jack.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.